Bible, go ahead and move over to Acts 17. Acts chapter 17. We'll pick up there. If you didn't bring one, can't grab one online, that's cool. We got your back on the screen. Today we're hitting the next leg in Dangerous Witness. We're just a couple, three left in this series, and so enjoy them while they're here. This has been our series through the book of Acts, where we're just looking at the witness of the early church. What is it that they found in Jesus worth living for, worth dying for? How can we ramp up that intensity in our lives and live it out? And if you read through Acts 17 with us this past week, you hit verse 6, which was the genesis for this series. I won't go too far into it, but there's some people, they point their finger at Christians and they say, look at those people. They've turned the world upside down. Look at these guys. They've taken everything that we know and they've flipped it. And Paul's going to do it again for you here in Acts 17. I just wanted you to be ready for it. That's my thing. Paul's going to get a little intellectual, and so we get to bring our A game today. All that to say this, right? If you want to get where we're headed, especially in Acts chapter 17, I think there's this word you got to get cozy with today. Maybe not cozy with, but you got to kind of wrestle with it just a little bit. This one will help you whenever we move into Acts 17. It's the word close. Close. Can you say that? The word close. Close. Acts 17, verse 27. Last part of that verse, Paul makes this statement. He says that God and the life God brings is not far from any one of us. God is not far from any one of us. In other words, he says that's close. God is close to us. He's close to us. And on the surface, it looks like something, man, that's really comforting. That's good to hear. You have all those good comments about God, but then you start to think about that word close for a second. And all of a sudden, it might take a turn for you in a different direction. Maybe the direction it did for me this past week. There's this phrase you bump into early in life, and it's like the second you hear it, you learn to hate it. You know how this goes? Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, and like nuclear holocaust and bocce ball and all kinds of other things, right? But horseshoes and hand grenades get all the press. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Close but no cigar, right? Close but not close enough. You hear it, and immediately you hate it. And you know why? Because that phrase just dogs you, and it reminds you that win that you were looking for, that preferred future you were going after, that point you were trying to score, all of that's out of your reach. You were close, but you didn't get it. You're almost there, but not far enough. Close but no cigar, close. But then close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. If you were live kicking and watching sports Wednesday night, you got a glimpse at that word close and the way it bites a little bit. At that time, Game 4, the NBA Finals hadn't yet played, and this one was epic, right? The Warriors down the Cavs, two games to 0, and the Cavs needed this win like they needed air to breathe. No one's ever come back from 3 down. Some of you are like, I don't care about basketball. That's cool. That's cool. Just know this. End of the game, Cavaliers need to win, right? They're what, 5 points up? 6 points up. There it is. Victory's on the horizon. 3 minutes to play. All they got to do is ride this out. All they got to do is ride it out, and they watch it slip. That win slip from their grasp. 11 straight points the Warriors score. And if you're watching the game, there's this one moment in it where you see the tide shift and you see the Cavs get really cozy with that word close. It goes like this. You've probably seen it if you followed sports at all. It was played just a little bit. See, it's an imaginary sort of thing that goes down. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Here it goes. Yeah, Kevin Durant got the ball. He's going, what would Rory do? There it is. All right. Bang. Money. Money.
And they should get a 2-for-1 here.
There it is, right? That was the go-ahead 3, and from that moment on, the tide shifted. I mean, you can pinpoint, some of you can pinpoint that moment in time whenever close came. Close but not close enough. Close but no cigar. On my shelf, I was prepping this sermon and I looked up and had to chuckle. On my shelf, I had this belt buckle. It's there to remind me of my roots and to remind me that evidently once upon a time, actually I was a junior in high school, when I had the reserve grand champion market hog. That's right. at the Little River Classic. Did not even know it was named that, but there you go. Sheila did me right. That's right. Good girl. There you go with it. And you look at it and you're like, wow, what an accomplishment, man. That's a rad buckle, dude. You should strap that thing on, go for a ride. Uh-huh. Yeah, and then you look at it another way and you're going, okay, let's get this straight. Reserve Grand, that's like the not grand champion, right? That's the first loser, isn't it? You know how they go, that's close, buddy. But not close enough. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. There it is. Close. Close. And that word can get distasteful whenever you roll it around. You were close to getting a raise. Where's my money? Where's my money? Close to winning an election, but you didn't get the office or didn't get the position. You were close to getting a job, close to meeting that special someone. Hey, Illinois, we're close to balancing a budget. Just wait, by the end of this, I'll give you a way to look at it. Just remember the word Zeno, the name Zeno, right? Close to getting out of debt, close to surviving cancer. All of a sudden it bites a little bit close, right? It's that distance between where you and where you want to be. You and where you feel like you should be. And whenever you go to Acts chapter 17, Paul's going to say, yeah, close is the distance between you and where you need to be. You and where you need to be. You go to verse 16 all the way to 34, the end of it, and Paul says, man, close is something you got to do battle with. You open up in Acts 17 verse 16 and you notice that Paul's been dropped off in the city of Athens, right in the middle of Attica, Greece. Boom, Athens, prominent city. Paul dusts himself off, and I feel like he should have felt at home. That should have been like his first emotion, because you've got Athens, this prominent city, like 500,000 people, 500, 600,000 people in Athens at that day and time. And not just people, man. This is like the intellectual epicenter, the upper crust. This is where, the smartest guys in any room go to play, and Paul's like, yeah, that's right. Feels like home, He's from a well-to-do family. I think of him as a Harvard-educated dude. Man, when he comes to follow Jesus, he brings his intellect with him, and we're going to see it on display a little bit today, right? He looks around, first emotion, hey, this isn't bad. I got some guys that I can spar with. This is pretty cool. Next emotion, oh, wow. I'm surrounded by an entire city full of people who are close. Close, but not close enough. Close, but no cigar. So close to what really matters. What really matters. Watch how this works. Verse 16. It just goes this way. It says that while Paul was waiting for them, his compadres, to catch up in Athens, he was greatly distressed to see that the city was full of idols. He was greatly what? Distressed. Right, this is bothering him. Right, just sneak preview. They're missing out, and he hates that word close. He hates it, right? He was greatly distressed. 500,000 people, one commentator said, yeah, and they probably had about one idol per household. Right? They even have, and you'll see this in a few minutes, they even have an idol to an unknown God. Just make sure they don't leave anyone out. Man, they believe in gods. Some of them do, right? We'll play with that, right? Verse 17, so he reasoned in the synagogue with both Jews and God-fearing Greeks, as well as in the marketplace day by day with those who happened to be there, and a group of Epicurean and Stoic philosophers began to debate with him. Just a little word on them. Stoics, in terms of belief system, they were pantheists. That just means, God is in what you see around you. You hear a concept like Mother Earth, like Earth can be grieved and has emotions and things like that. Welcome to like entry-level pantheism, Father Moon, Holy Cow, like all these things. God is in what you see, that sort of thing. Not only that, the Stoics were the do the right thing group. Let's figure out the right thing so that we can do the right thing, right? The Epicureans, on the other hand, they believed in all kinds of gods. They just believe this, that, the God just kind of created them. They believe, all kind of believe that they just kind of sprang out of the native soil of Attica. That was it. The gods did that, and then they left them alone. They don't even care about you. It's kind of how that goes. Epicureans, they believed instead of doing the right thing, they said pleasure. Pleasure, do the pleasurable thing. That's the point of life. And hey, especially if you can just enjoy the simple things in life, that's really the key. Enjoy breathing, enjoy, beauty, stuff like that, and off you go. Right? These guys come close to Paul, and they are the leading philosophical schools, right? Christianity, this is main opponent right here. And they come in and notice what they say. They ask, what is this babbler trying to say? Like the Greek for babbler is like, ba, 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 ba. He's an infant. Guy can't even string together coherent words. They're all looking down their noses at Paul and stuff. And he's like, oh, really? Well, let's play. Others remark, he seems to be advocating foreign gods. They said that because Paul was preaching the good news about Jesus and the resurrection. They got the fact that Jesus is the Son of God from that. Right? And I wonder, why is he preaching this? That's what you got to ask. Then they took him and they brought him to a meeting of the Areopagus, where they get together, and they said to him, may we know what this new teaching is that you're presenting. You're bringing some strange ideas to our ears. We'd like to know what they mean. All the Athenians and the foreigners who lived there spent their time doing nothing but talking about and listening to the latest ideas. Like, we get that. Did you hear what Donald Trump said? Like, that Putin, Hillary, I just budget here, and corruption, and Rory. Just the latest. What are we hearing? We're just going to talk about it. The Warriors and the Cat already did that. Already been there. Some of you can't wait to talk about my sweet buckle. It's okay to be jealous. It's all right. Not all of us can have that. Right? And you read this, though, and what you get from it is that Paul's just stepped into this situation that has the word close written all over it, right? He's surrounded by the intellectual elite, the smartest people in any room, but for all their smarts and accomplishments, there's this one connection they haven't made, the connection with the source of life. They may be close to that connection, but they're living separated from him. It's like you're watching played out on the page what you see on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. You go there and you see a painting that we call the creation of Adam, and I censored it. You'd be happy for that. Adam and modesty, right? Anyway, we're back, right? And you look at that, and you've got God in this, reaching out to Adam. And what's Adam doing? It's like doing the Adam layback. Oh, gee. God's coming his way. Oh, okay, right? And still not getting together, man. He is close. He is close. But he's not close enough. Close, but he's not quite there. Close, but then that only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, right? And you see this, you get a feel for where Paul's at in Athens, a group of people who were totally engaged about any number of topics. Just when you talk about God, they're going to blow you off. You ever feel that way? Man, you got a friend or family member, man, you are absolutely engaged. Any topic is fair game, just not this one. Just not this one. And this is a bummer, right? Because you see this and you get this metaphor for our lives too. You go to the Bible and you find that this is like the one area where you don't want to miss out, this area called life, the source of life. It says all kinds of things about it. You've got John 10:10 that says there's abundant life available to you. Abundant life. It's sitting there for you. You've got John 15:4-5 that says there's a source that brings that life. You stay connected to that source. You're going to have fruit. What's fruit? What's that look like? Things like love and joy. It's disposable things. We don't really, right. We want that. Things like peace and patience. Things like gentleness and faithfulness and goodness and self-control. You stay connected to this source, and that sort of life comes out of you. That sort of fruit comes. That sounds pretty good. John 1:3 tells you you're created for that life. I don't know if you knew that. Colossians 3 through 4, you probably had that sneaking suspicion, by the way. Colossians 3 verse 4 tells you that when you have that life, right? When you're connected to that source, man, you can have hope. You can feel confident because you're going to have that life here and in the life to come. Death doesn't have any sting to it anymore. You're confident. And then this grand finale, book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon, the guy who had it all, he's going to tell you that you can gain the world, but not get this life and still find everything to be meaningless. Man, stack all the cash you want, right? Roll in the sweetest ride. Man, 4-door Jeep, 2-inch lift kit, massive, right? Be rolling. Miss this and you missed it. He says it's all just meaningless without it. Right? The Bible says, man, this is worthwhile. But then in Matthew chapter 13, Jesus reminds us of what we get so often. And we even see this in our lives where, instead of staying connected to that source or connecting to it, we end up living kind of the Adam layback with our lives where it's just like, oh, give him a little, maybe. And it just, that connect, or maybe you were connected. Matthew 13, Jesus says there are these different soils. One of them is just hard, and you see that. Maybe you're there today. Someone mentions God and you're like, whatever, sarcastic, blow it off, not even consider it. For some of you, he says there are a couple of other soils you got to think about because these are the ones where, man, you were connected. Woo, money, it's going so good. So good, this is great. But then something happened. He says, hardship or persecution hit you. Mean stuff, bad stuff. Or the worries of this world and the deceitfulness of wealth. I went after that raise. I got a promotion, and all of a sudden I was off doing this. And the layback ended up happening, where before it was a lean forward. Right? You look at this, and Paul is going, man, here's the thing. No matter the cause, right? We're here, or maybe our friends are here, and instead of living this solid connection, we live the Adam lean back. And Paul says, wow, that's close, but it's no cigar. It's close, but no enchilada. Close, but then close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. And this is life we're talking about. It's something you don't want to miss by a hair or lose by a nose too. And so Paul says, man, all right, so it's time to move forward. You go to London, England. I've been told that there's a way you can think about this there. I've shared this with some of you. Go down to the subway system, and I'm told that whenever the cars come in, the rail cars come in, that there's a voice over the loudspeaker that's going to say the words that are written on the platform there. Mind the gap, mind the gap, mind the gap. It's a reminder to, the Brits and people vacationing, tourists there, that a lot of the platforms have a curve and the rail cars are rectangles, and so you get these gaps. Mind the gap. Make sure you don't just get close to the car. Make sure you make it all the way there. Now, don't just get close. Man, close, all of a sudden you shrink by that much and you're caught in the gap, right? Mind that gap. Get all the way there. You go to Acts 17 and Paul says, okay, it's time to mind the gap. Let me show you how. And he starts talking to them and he starts talking to all of us. It goes like this, verse 22 through 31, just a couple ways that you can mind the gap whenever it comes to the source of life, right? A couple ways that we do this and help other people to do it. The first one's going to be heavy, right? Because Paul's going to unload, bring your A game. Right? The second one is going to take us into our daily life with it. A couple ways to do this. They're simple, but they've got something. First one, verse 22 to 26. Paul is walking into this situation. You've got the Sistine Chapel going on. People close, no cigar. I kind of think if you want another metaphor, it's like the Where's Waldo books. Some of you stared at those for hours trying to find little Waldo on a page. It's kind of like God's Waldo. And like they're staring at the same page and Paul's going, he's there. They're going, yeah, I'm not seeing him. It'd be like this group, and maybe this helps, is looking at the Sistine Chapel and they get the left side. There's just nothing on the right side. painting's incomplete, but they don't know it. They're just going, look, man, Adam, and he's looking good too, dude. You like work out or something? You know, what's up, buddy? Yeah, self-confident too. All right, you know, you got that going down, but there's nothing on the right side. And so Paul says, all right, let me help you with the right side of that. Let me help you. Let's sketch this in. For you to get plugged in, you've got to sketch it in. And he says this. Paul stands up, right, in the meeting of the Areopagus, and he said, people of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious. For as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, to an unknown God. Man, you guys are covering your bases. Well done. So you're ignorant of the very thing you worship. Ignorant. He's not making a judgment call on their intellect. Stupid would be you don't have capacity. Ignorant is you don't have knowledge. Right? So he's just saying you don't have knowledge of the very thing you're saying you worship because it's unknown. Let me hook you up here. Right? So he takes something that they have and starts talking. And this is what I'm going to proclaim to you. You know, God is knowable. Don't miss him. God is close. This is where he's at. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth and does not live in temples built by human hands. And he's not served by human hands as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. From one man, he made all the nations that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their land. All right, you look at that and you can sum it up under one phrase. Opening phrase in the Bible. In the beginning, what? God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God. He's taking them clear back to the beginning, and he's saying, all right, if you want to fill in the right side, you've got to go back and you've got to consider the source here. You've got to consider the source. And he's like, in the beginning, God. And this God isn't like maybe you've heard he is. And this is really relevant because in our culture, God gets, people try to make him out to be whatever they want. And he's going, no, God is self-existent and God is self-sustaining. Hold on to those two things. In other words, he doesn't need you to build him a place to live. He doesn't need you to change his diaper. He's got that. Right? He's the one who takes care of everything. He gives you life and breath and everything else. He makes nations, marks out boundaries. He's the intelligent source of life. Key words, right? The short form of what he has, what he said goes something like this, that God is the self-what? Existent, self-intelligent, right? Self-existent, self-sustaining, intelligent source of everything, right? Just get those words, just fix them in your mind for a second because he's doing something with this. He's doing something. He doesn't want us to miss it right here, right? Self-existent, self-sustaining, intelligent source of everything, which, by the way, I think of those as existence essentials. If you're going to kick it all off, those three things have to be true. They just have to, right? So with that one line, Paul gives you the first way that you mind the gap in your life. I say, consider the source. Consider the source. He's forcing them to consider the source, right? And it's kind of file this away under the line of you don't know whether or not you're missing something until you know what there is to be missed. And so he's marking out, God, like consider the source. At least have a conversation about the source of life today. Don't live an unexamined life, right? And you do that in a couple of ways, right? At first he's saying you have to acknowledge, you begin that pursuit by acknowledging that in the beginning there had to be something. In the beginning I think of it like this, right? How many of you are here today and you can just say with all confidence, I exist? With that, I think therefore I am. We're all up in philosophy land, right? I exist, right? All right. Some of you didn't raise your hand, which makes me wonder. Okay. All right. Then how many of you can say that there's the possibility that you could not have existed? Some of you are like, I'm not tracking. Like if your parents didn't get together, and we'll keep the get together real. Okay, just keep it surface. They didn't go on that date. There we go, right? The first date, we're keeping it real. We're keeping it real, right? Yes. So how many of you, there's a possibility you could not have existed? Yay. All right. Now let's go to your parents. If they hadn't gotten together, right? Hadn't met, you wouldn't be here. All right. So is there then the possibility that they could not have existed? Thumbs up. Yeah, if their parents hadn't got, all right, let's go to your grandparents then. Is there the possibility that they could not have existed? If their parents, all right, now let's go over here. Yes. Where did it start again? Like, where's the start then? You keep playing with it because you go back far enough and there's this question you're going to smack into that goes like, where did it all start? Because all of us in this room know you just can't keep going back. There had to be something at the start of it. There just does. I mean, infinite regression is an absolute philosophical fallacy. So, like, it can't keep going back. So it had to start somewhere. So where and how did it all start? In the beginning, there had to be something. So we acknowledge that, right? And from there, then you consider your options. What is it at the beginning? If you want to consider the source, what are the options? Right? And for them, they believe, gods are kind of doing their thing. For us, there are a couple of hard categories, and everything just kind of grabs from them. The first one goes this way. It's pretty popular in our culture. First category, it just says that what? Help me. Cosmos is the source, right? The cosmos is the source. It's a dominant view in our culture. Today, I believe you're taught and you're peer pressured into believing this. Click your brain off. This is true. Naturalism is the way to go, right? Years ago, Carl Sagan said it, and this is hawked as gospel in our culture, that in the beginning, right, the cosmos, he said, the cosmos is all there is, all there ever was, and all there ever will be. The cosmos. In the beginning, cosmos. There it is. And that view then believes, right, and think of the essentials we rolled out, that the cosmos is the self-existent, self-sustaining, intelligent source of everything. Right? You can call it naturalism. I think it goes like this, and I am simplifying it, hopefully not irritatingly so. Right? In the beginning, nothing. Right? In the beginning, nothing. But that nothingness is kind of a living concept. You can't get away from that with this. It's a living concept, and that living concept, it condensed itself to the point that, it's going to explode, right? And from that explosion, given enough years, given enough, however that goes, but out of that explosion spews galaxies and suns and worlds, right? And then, this nothingness that became somethingness somehow tripped across in all of that these natural laws. It tripped across and kicked off natural laws that allow our cosmos to be self-sustaining. Interesting. Things like gravity, things like atmosphere and climate, things like light and moisture, all that stuff. And then this nothingness that became somethingness had the sort of intelligence needed to become the source of life. See, one of the things is believe it's just time and random chance. I'm going, no. Even when you talk about naturalism and from this perspective, you're still acting as though evolution had some intelligence. There's some sort of drive toward the production of humanity, right? There's some intelligence to the nothingness, right? Why? Because it knew that life was a goal to be produced somehow. And that progression toward humanity, right? We've got to start that. It knew that you needed not only life, but higher order life. And it's not just survival of the fittest, developing what you have to survive. This is developing unnecessary necessities. Things like eyesight. You do not need that to survive. So why would eyes be developed if you're developing what you need for survival? That just doesn't make sense. Things like hearing, things like pleasure, driving procreation. Adult words there, think about it. Why pleasure, for crying out loud? Can't get that done otherwise, right? You keep tracking with this. This nothingness turned somethingness was smart enough to move everything to that point, right? And you hear that and you're just going, I don't know. And maybe you're going all the yeah buts, and that's cool. We can talk about it later. I look at it and I'm going, I've got a few questions then, right? If that's tracking, and Paul would raise them, you can just lay them out. There are 4 questions that I can rattle off the top of my head with this. If this is true, explain right and wrong then. Some of you are like, oh, it's just culturally created. That's what you've been taught to parrot. Okay, that's cool. Then why have all cultures throughout history, everywhere on the face of the planet, kind of come up with the same things that are in bounds and the same things that are out of bounds? What's up with that? Abuse, that's not cool. You come, smack my wife, that's like universally acknowledged as I must now, A-bomb your house. And everyone throughout history would go, yes, you should have, you're well in that. Cowardice, we hate it. Why? What's going on here? Right and wrong. Explain that. Where did morality, the moral law, came from? We don't put animals on trial for capital crimes, but people, we sure do. Why? That's where we came from. That's just interesting to me. You keep going. Why right and wrong? Why worship? If it all came from nothingness, why are humans incurably just worshiping beings? We got how many religions on the face of the planet? Why? Why are people just like born reaching, believing out there? Why is that? Just curious. Another question. This one gets me. How can the impersonal create something personal? How can nothingness turn somethingness, create us looking like we do, thinking like we do, talking like we do, acting like we do? Someone says, it just evolved it all. There it is. Yeah, well, my problem with that starts and ends. Well, it doesn't quite end. It starts, at least in part, with we still haven't found any transitional species, okay? Come on. And yet last night, I got to hold a newborn baby. And it came out fully formed, let me tell you, looking like an old man. Beautiful. And if you've been there, it's a miracle every time. Every time. Something animated that body. Something formed it. Right? You look at that and you're going, really? And then this one, what do we do with all the order around us? Things are just like, our world is fine-tuned for existence. Things like all those, the science of fine-tuning, all these dials that had to be adjusted just right for life to be on planet Earth. If our crust were 10 feet thicker, the crust of the earth, there would be no oxygen, or, we have 21% oxygen in our air. If it goes up to 50%, lightning would, light our forests on fire. 10%, you can have no fire. That's a bummer. Things like ice. Ice expands right before the freezing point. Well, that's just a disposable piece of information. Yeah, except for the other bit. If it didn't, lakes would freeze clear to the bottom. We'd have an ice age, almost overnight, worldwide ice age. Now, that's just crazy. That's a weird coincidence. There's so many. You just keep rolling it, and all of a sudden you're going, maybe not this. Cosmos is the source? I don't know. Paul says there's another thing here. You're considering it, maybe this. Right? He just lays this out. Maybe the Creator is the source, that in the beginning God created, that He's the self-existing, self-sustaining, intelligent source of everything. Maybe that mantle fits better on Him. He's the designer behind the design you see. And you're going, well, that just kind of makes sense. Rory has an apple on this, which kind of indicates that it was put together in China. All right, I'm back. Did you get it? That maybe, this Creator is the clockmaker that set every dial just right. Maybe that. And because He has intelligence, you have intelligence. There it is. Because He has strength, you have strength. right? Because he has the will to accomplish things. You have the will to accomplish things. Creativity, because he has life in him. He has given you life and will continue to give you life, right? See, what Paul's saying is, man, we got to consider the fact that there's a right side to that painting. There's a God, and he's reaching out to you, and he's reaching out for me. See, and that'll get you part way there. Right? But if you just grab that, considering the source and thinking about it, that'll get you close, just not close enough. So Paul goes on, he says, okay, not only do you consider the source, but now you need to connect yourself to the source. You need to connect to the source. Verse 27 to 31. Paul says that God did all of this so that we would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he's not far from any one of us. You know, even right where you're at today. You know, maybe you're leaned back and you know it. I'm not as committed as I could be, not as connected as I should be, not being changed the way I want to be by Jesus. Right? And you know it's from the lean back in your life. He says, you know what? Even in creation, what you see is God doing all of this. Creating all of this for us to enjoy, so that we look out and we say thank you. So that we look and we reach for him. Why? Because he's not far from any of us. He's not there. Right? This isn't some impersonal nothingness turned somethingness. No, this is a very personal God who's very knowable and close. Close. For in him, he says, we live and we move and we have our being, as some of your own poets have said. So we're his offspring. Therefore, he says, and this is where we listen, and this is where we'll kind of take some energy moving from here. Therefore, since we're God's offspring, we should not think that the divine being is like gold or silver or stone, an image made by human design and skill. He's not a thing, he's a person. In the past, God overlooked such ignorance, but now he commands all people everywhere to repent. Stop leaning back. Let's get connected. Let's get connected. For he set a day when he'll judge the world with justice by the man he has appointed. And he's given proof of this to everyone by raising him from the dead. God of the universe, right? The divine maker of everything is here today reaching out to you. And Paul's saying close when it's God in the picture, when it's life in the picture. Close isn't close enough. Close isn't close enough. It's close but no cigar. It's close, right? But we know close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, and certainly not this. The Adam lean back won't get it done. He's come our way. We go, right, and meet him the rest of the way. If you went back to that day in time, you'd notice that there's this philosopher that kind of helps us with this. I talked about Zeno whenever I led. This is this guy. He wrote, and he was living about 350 years before this conversation in the book of Acts would have happened, but they still remember him. We still remember it. This guy was great. From like age 13, man, he is just causing trouble for philosophers. He keeps creating these like mind puzzles that they can't suss out. Right? My favorite with Zeno goes something like this. There's no way for you to get from point A to point B. You just can't do it. Why? Well, because to get from point A to point B, you got to go halfway. What? Yeah, and for you to go halfway, you first got to go halfway to the halfway, right? And then if you want to go halfway to the halfway, you got to go halfway to that. And then to get halfway to the halfway to the halfway, you got to go halfway to that. And then you got to go halfway to that. Pretty soon you're taking a really small step, and you still don't think you can get it done. Right? I look at this passage, and especially the way it ended. Right? And the way he started by talking about Jesus, this man resurrected from the dead. And I look at it and I'm reminded that in the same way there's difficulty going from point A to point B in Zeno's paradox. I mean, you look at this and you're reminded that there's extreme difficulty for us in this whole idea of connecting with God. The Bible says, you know what? We can't get it done alone. That us, the dirt, the junk we get into, the sin we fall for, it separates us from God. But what we can't do, right, from point A, we just can't span that gap. Jesus does for us. right? He spanned the gap, right, on a cross so that we can mind the gap and connect with the source. Question is, are we going to connect today? If you go to one of the passages I referred to a little bit earlier, you find a way that we can think about connecting, right? Considering the source this week and connecting to the source. It's John chapter 15. Jesus just looks at us and he says, you know what? I'm the true vine. I'm the vine. I'm the source, and you're the branches. If a man or woman remains in me and I in them, if they abide in me, right? If they live their life connected to me, considering me, on mission for me, right? They abide in me, spending time with me in my word, they'll bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Why? Because close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So my challenge today, mind the gap. Mind the gap. Connect with the source. Connect with it. And we're moving into a time of invitation. The group's going to play, and we're going to sing some songs. And while they do that, we're going to have an opportunity to just respond in a tangible way. If you're looking at this going, you know what? I haven't ever gotten connected to the source. You know, I want to follow Jesus, connect, get baptized today. You can do that. You can come forward while we're singing. I can meet you up here by the steps. That'd be cool. For the rest of us, you know, maybe you're sitting here going, you know what? I've done the Adam pullback in my life. Okay. In this space, Jesus is just calling you, come back, right? Consider the source. Get connected to the source. He spanned the gap, right? So you can mind the gap. Now let's do that. Let's commit ourselves here. Why don't you stand and we'll move in that direction.